Hi guys, welcome to this video where I'm about to say goodbye to my beautiful South Korean inspired journal because it's all finished now and move on to setting up my brand new one for 2022. So far I have done 2 of my 3 journals that I had made last year, and this is the third and final in the series. So this one is just a nice plain grey coloured leather finish, a vegan leather finish, and it's got a beautiful gold elephant that I designed for on the front cover, and it's nice and simple and clean, and it means it won't clash with anything. So I'm excited to just get started and glamorize the internal of it. So here we are, starting with the front cover page. So if you have seen my previous bullet journal flip throughs from the year of 21, you would have seen that on the cover pages I have illustrated my traveling girl in a scene of some kind. The first one was her in front of a cityscape looking across a lake and kind of looking in her journal. And then the next one was her actually back in her studio, which was actually the studio I was envisioning for myself one day. And this year, or this coming year, I've decided to move away from that idea and kind of change our little character up a little bit. So then when I started thinking about what I wanted to do this year, I thought it was going to be, a clean slate and it's time to try something different. I wanted to focus a little bit more on that fairy tale vibe. I want to add more magical elements throughout these setups and focus a little bit more on the story behind the places that we go, and it just feels a bit like I'm writing a story sometimes in these countries that I explore, and I'm imagining a trip there every time. So I thought maybe we could go for more of a storytelling kind of vibe this year coming. So with that in mind, I thought of stories, I thought of books, and then I thought of vintage books, and then I thought of Alice in Wonderland, and it just kind of trickled from there. So this concept is kind of a mishmash of those ideas. So I basically chose a color palette and went for vintage. I don't know if it's vintage actually, I might just be calling it that. I just felt like I wanted like warm tones of oranges, reds, yellows, peaches, pinks, all those kind of nice sunrise colors, and then put them in with a touch of the green. I really love that color combo. So I knew I had my color palette ready, and I knew I wanted my storytelling idea to work from. And then I still wanted to have a girl in there. So this time I've decided that she is a girl that has been shrunk right down, just like Alice in Wonderland. And I thought it would be cool if she's this tiny little magical creature that can jump into the storybooks of each place and learn about their history and just explore each country as if it were inside a book of facts and a book of stories about that country. So that is where my mind is at when I've designed this up, and it was so much fun to design because when I had this character in mind, a cute little sort of fairy-like girl ready to travel through the books at a library or somewhere like that. So it was really fun just trying to find a way to show that on the cover page. So I thought it would be cute to add a little teacup and a vase and some books and some writing tools and just kind of set the scene as if she is a bullet journalist or an artist or a writer, and that she's shrunk down and ready to research the first country. So she's jumping into this first book. So yeah, that's my concept, and I am really happy with how it's turned out. So now I'll show you the process of how we got to the end. So first you saw me doing this sketch on this page, and I did actually have to practice the sketch of the girl first. So I did that digitally, and I think I did one in my sketchbook as well first. I had to use a reference for the way she was sitting because I couldn't picture that, and I'm glad I did because just having that body shape there really worked for the way she was sitting on the book. So I did use that, and then I just added facial features and hair and things like that. It's definitely an area I want to practice more in. I love the idea of creating characters and illustrations, and I love the thought of children's book illustration. So these are things I do want to practice in my own art form and art practice. So it's a great spot to do it right here in my bullet journal. So as long as you guys don't mind seeing it, I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah, and I just kind of created her first digitally, and then and then put her into the scene after I felt comfortable with her positioning and stuff. So I'm quite happy with how she turned out. It's tricky working on such small features. I always find that, I don't have quite enough space, or maybe it's because I can't get quite close to the page enough to sort of split the nose and the lips up, like they kind of blended together with my pen. But I think it's because I can't get right close up because I'm filming. So I'm just going to blame that as to why the features aren't quite what I was after. But other than that, I really like her, and I think she's going to work for me for this year. So once the sketch was done, I went in and did all the line art using my Pigma Micron. It's in a really nice brown color. I don't know the name of it. It doesn't actually have one on the barrel. So I'm just going to call it brown. And I wanted to use brown because of that whole vintage vibe that I keep going on about, which might not make any sense, but I'm calling it vintage. This whole palette for this whole setup is in my mind vintage. So I wanted to use brown as the line art mainly, and it kind of just gives you that softer feel. So rather than being so prominent, being black everywhere, I think when you use a lighter or a different colored line art, it just really sets a different kind of mood for your art. So I started with that, and then once I felt that it was all on the page and looking quite decently arranged, that's when I went in with a little bit more of a stronger, intentional black outline on areas. So for me, that is where shadows are, where the light is going to be not on. I'll just use the black and do some extra shading on areas. I gave her a black headband, added in some really dark shadows in the books, and drew the black wings on the butterfly. And then something I really wanted to add, once I knew I was going to put a bit on the butterfly, I thought it would be cool to add the black and white stripes on the teacup. I think that's a really cool look. It makes me think very retro, sort of 60s feel. But yeah, I just think it really works. And it works with her dress as well. So I tied that stripe in there. And it's just another pattern to add to rather than doing more florals. Because originally I was thinking just floral everywhere, just go flower crazy. But I didn't. I held off, and I sort of added this other texture in, and I think it really works. So I'm super happy with that teacup and how it brought just another piece to the overall look of this spread. And then after that, it was time to add some color. So I used my watercolors this time and just tried to add a light wash of those colors I mentioned before, the sage green, the peachy tones, and the pinks and the browns. And I just really love how warm and friendly the color palette is. Really happy with that. And then obviously I had to go in and add my gold touch to it all. So I just added a gold pop everywhere, and I think that brought a lot of it together. And then I almost forgot to write 2022 on it. So I do go back and write that in. I just put it on one of the spines of the books, which I thought worked quite well. And then the final thing was to add the Dutch door effect on this cover page. And I'm kind of doing a double Dutch door, if that makes sense. I'm going to cut this first one around the vase shape and in. And then on the page beneath is going to be my key and my grid spacing guide. So I'll sort of show the key on that one, and then there'll be a little cut on that page as well, revealing the page beneath. So a bit of a layered effect, and it works really well. I'm excited to show you. And so here is a look at the final cover page. So my idea for the page beneath this cover is to have just a very small page referencing the key for my bullet journal and the grid spacing guide. So the key, just so you know, is irrelevant to me now because I know it so well, but I do like to put it in here because of my job, which is showing you guys how to bullet journal and how I set up mine. So I keep the key there just for that reason, and it's nice to have as a reminder anyway. I just like making this page, to be honest. So yeah, just having the key there, and I did like a nice vintage key to show through on the cover page, and kept that horizon line or the line of the desk in the shot so that it looks part of that front cover page when it's closed. Then the rest of this page is for my grid spacing guide, which is where I have a little reminder of how many dots there are on the page. So this particular bullet journal, and if you're not aware, this is a bullet journal that I have created and it's on my website if you do want to purchase one. There's 3 different designs, and this is, like I said before, this is the 3rd design, so the one I haven't used before. The other 2 are printed with lots of pretty pictures all around the cover page. So I'll leave the link in the description box if you're interested in learning more or ordering one. But yeah, these particular journals have 40 dots going vertically and then 27 dots horizontally. So I just put that in along with the half-page dots, and that's pretty much all I do. A lot of people can go in depth into, thirds and quarters and so on, but I don't feel like I really need that in the way I work in my journal. And then I'm just using a nice illuminated G for the word grid, and I think that really gives it that vintage storybook feel. So all these pages, I'm trying to make it look like it's an old book feeling. Not exactly, obviously, but just inspired by that, and just have a little essence of that old world kind of book. And no spread is complete without some gold. So I added some gold washi tape to the edges just to add a little bit of something to it, and to enhance that kind of vintage old world book feel. And then just cut another wave down the side of this page to reveal the next layer of washi tape beneath. So this next spread beneath is my calendar spread for the year, but because I know this journal will only last me 6 months, I'm just going to set it up as a biannual calendar. So just January to June on this page, and this is where I have the little mini calendars to remind me what day starts where, because if you've been watching me for a while, I tend to forget which days of the week start me off in the weeklies, and I seem to forever be making mistakes like that. So I'm hoping by having these little mini calendars, I will go back and be able to refer to it very easily before I start setting up my weekly pages. Fingers crossed. I also on this page like to put every birthday or occasion, special occasions that come up in, every year. So annual reminders are on this page, and it's a great spot to have in your bullet journal, and you can always move these from this section onto your weeklies and monthly sections to remember things, and you won't ever forget things. I'm really loving using the brown and the black to have that difference in colors on the pages. I'm just really enjoying that. And I've also been using my calligraphy for the titles. That's always fun. It's just a nice excuse to do a very feminine feel to this spread by designing it around that sort of vintage fairytale vibe. I just feel like I can just really get expressive with everything, so I'm just loving that. And then once I've added a little bit of pink on this page using my Tombow brush pen, I thought it would be nice to throw in a little watermark of the numbers behind those calendars, and I think that really just finished the page off. And here's how it turned out. Now this next page is my annual cleaning calendar, and I have been doing these for each setup that I've done, but I have changed them up every time because I still hadn't found quite the right setup to make it work for me, and I have high hopes for this one. I really, really like it. So fingers crossed it keeps me accountable and I keep using it throughout the year. So this one I've decided to put across the whole spread, which I don't think I've done before. I think I've usually done it on one page. But the way this one I've designed it definitely could lend itself to a full double spread, and then I've got room to play and make it nice and pretty on the outside. So I've made this nice curly shape on the middle center of the page going across, and then I'm using some of my washi tape to mask off areas on the corners because I'm going to decorate those bits with lovely flowers, like a flower pattern sticking to those same beautiful colors that I've been using throughout. I think that's what really has made me love this this setup as well, because of the colors. They're just like consistent on each page. That always gives me a really good feeling. Once the decorative flowers were drawn in using that brown fine liner, I'm using a little bit of the watercolor again just to really softly tap them in. I'm trying to use minimal water on the pages, as I always like to do in my bullet journal. And then I realized that I actually went too strong with the pink around the outside of this shape. So a trick, if you ever do that and you feel like it's too bright and you can't really add more paint or something, what I found really worked is just using my white gel pen to do little patterns on it. So it's still sticking with that whole feel of this page, like those little details on the leaves. And I've just put that across the pink, and I felt like that obviously makes your eyes see a little bit more white, which naturally makes the color look a bit lighter. So although I didn't change the brightness of the color, I've just kind of tricked the eye to make it seem like there's not as bright and impactful color right there. So I thought that was pretty cute, and made me feel better about the whole color arrangement on this page. And then after doing some calligraphy at the top, I am onto my actual schedule setup. So this first box on the left is going to be for all of my daily tasks. And these, to be honest, are so ingrained in me that I definitely don't need a checklist for the daily things. The weekly ones I do need a checklist for, and they are, the weekly tasks that I need to do on the weekends or throughout the week. And when I finish those, I'm going to color in the first box down beneath it. So there's 52 boxes there. So by the end of the year, that should be all colored. One thing I didn't think of until afterwards is that this journal actually won't continue with me all through the year. So really I should have done this just for 6 monthly, but I figured I'm just going to use this exact one in the next book anyway. So I'll just, copy it over and start fresh again. So that'll still work. And then after the weeklies, we've got the bi-weekly tasks, then the monthly, and then the quarterly tasks, and then finally the biannual tasks. And I've tried to fill it out as much as I can. There'll probably be other things that pop up during the year, and I'll make sure to add them so that the next time I fill this out, it will be absolutely on point. So I'm really excited to use this calendar, which seems so nuts to be excited to want to clean. So I don't know if we're that far, but I'm excited to tick things off. This next spread is something that's a new addition for me in the front of my journal. In the last ones, I have actually only started adding this to my latest setups, which is basically a timesheet for my work. So my freelance design and art, I need to keep record of how much time I spend on individual jobs. So I needed a spot to put that in my journal that stays with me for the entire time. So I thought instead of putting it in the monthly sections, I should really put this at the front of the journal. So hence what we are doing right now and creating a work timesheet. And I'm just keeping this very basic because I need all the space that I can, and then just decorated the top section to add it and make sure it feels part of the theme so far. And I'm really loving this little stencil that I got years ago from Kmart, thinking it would come in handy. Hadn't even opened it yet until this setup because I really loved this particular shape at the top. It just looked really vintagey to me. That is definitely not a word. But I really liked using it for this setup. So I think this will get a lot more use. And there's even a circle on there that I think I would get a lot of use out of. So sometimes you can find some cheap little stencils around at your local Kmart or something like that. That will really help to just minimize error in your own setups. And then once I'd made that little banner for the top section, I went in and added just some little floral decorations that were still consistent with the ones I'd done on the previous spread. And I really like their effect. And then this time, instead of using the watercolor, I just chose a couple of my Tombos or Pitt Artist pens that were in very similar shades to the ones I'd used on the previous pages. And I've said it before, but I just really love how these colors work together, and the warm tones just make me really think of, retro vintage vibes. So that is how this page turned out, and then we are on to our final spread. And then on this last spread, I wanted to include my reading list, which I've been using the last 6 months in my journal, and I just really love having it because I need to keep a reference of all the Lee Child books in particular. There's 20 or 30 in this series that I'm reading, and I've read a good few of them now. I think I'm up to like maybe 10 or 15 or something like that. But they do sound really similar. Like the stories don't really reflect the titles much, so it's really hard to keep track of which ones. So I needed to have a list for them, and to have a list, I wanted a safe place to keep it. So where is better than your bullet journal? So I last time put it into a little envelope, and I really loved that idea. So I've tried to keep that this year. So I wanted to think of a little quirky way to tie that into one of the illustrations. So because we were thinking around that girl in the little books on the desk at the beginning, we've now moved to a wall in that office or studio, wherever she is. And this office wall has a little bit of vintage books again, and some suitcases and a little globe. And I just thought it would be cute to have this nice little sweet area with all the things that I like and put them on the shelf. And then inside the flap of the suitcase is our reading list. There is something that I just adore about drawing these cute little scenes. I don't know why. I just love drawing random inanimate objects like suitcases and plants and globes and babushka dolls. Is that what they're called? Let's just call them Russian nesting dolls. Anyway, I really loved drawing all these little features. And I just want to say as well, in the top left corner, you will see a tiny little teacup and saucer. I had to point it out because I just got it this day that I was filming. I had visited my nana, who's 93. I have two nanas, by the way. I have a gran and a nana, and both of them are amazing, and they're in their 90s. So one's going to be 99 in Feb, and one will be 94 in April. That's just a very random side note. But what I wanted to point out was the teacup that my nana had given me just the other day, because it was just so cute. And I love all the little trinkety things that she has collected over the years. And this was, one of her special ones. And she gave it to me, and I thought it was perfect as a little setup as a little feature in this particular setup, especially because I was, in that Alice in Wonderland moment of being shrunk down. So I just really loved this little miniature teacup and thought I would mention it. But back to the artwork. I am continuing with my brown theme on this one, using all the brown through the line art, and then adding some black in at the end where I felt it needed more dimension and more depth and contrast. So that was kind of the rule of thumb. Always start with majority brown and then add in some black at the end. I also added a little area on the top right section showing subscribers. I have forgotten to write these down in the last few months. I used to put them on my calendar spread, but I've stopped doing that. But I kind of do want to keep track of it, because it is something that's really exciting for me to watch and be part of. And I love seeing new people come on board to enjoy some of the content that I create. So this is my shameful plug at, if you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying this video, please do so to help me out, and like the video as well. That would be great. And then I can just write a little bit of a reminder of what subscribership I have in each of the months on that little poster in the background. And then it was time to color this. So I once again got out my watercolor paints and just did a small wash of color across this whole page. I didn't like working on the envelope. That was definitely tricky, and I was afraid that it was going to rip. It was that flimsy. So I luckily was able to hold it down and get a little bit of color on that top suitcase. And then I just decided to leave the bottom one as it is, because I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk, making it get all wet and soggy and make it rip. I was just afraid. So I just left that plain, left a lot of it plain itself, and just had the wash of color. And I really love these little mushrooms in the background on the poster. I think they set it off and give you that nice reference to Alice in Wonderland as well. And then she was finished, and this was the final page of my setup, and I'm super happy with it. And I just can't wait to use it for my book listings and writing down my subscriber viewership as well. Yeah, really happy with it. And now I will show you a flip through of what we made today. I hope you like the look of this. It really gives me warm feelings, and I hope it makes you feel happy looking at it too. And if it inspires you to do something similar or get out the art tools and start creating, then that's awesome. Please don't forget that if you did enjoy this video, to give it a thumbs up down below, subscribe for more of my videos, and remember to turn on the notifications bell as well so that you don't miss any of my uploads. And next week will be the official first month of 2022 in January, and we are exploring the Czech Republic. So I hope to see you here for that video and we can learn a little bit about it together while I get inspired and set up my month in my bullet journal. So thank you so much for watching and being here, and I look forward to chatting again with you soon. Have a wonderful week leading up to Christmas, and I will catch you here on Christmas Eve for our Czech Republic setup. Thank you again. Bye-bye.